Mitt namn är Charlie Thorstenson and this is INSIKT. INSIKT means insight, and it's 12 tracks of warm techno and drifting acid released on awesome Soundwave. In a way, you can say that the whole album builds upon just one single field recording I did. Just across the street from our apartment, there is this beautiful school. And every evening around 8 or 9, you can hear this very weak alarm sound coming from the buildings. And occasionally the sound gets louder, first from one of the buildings and then from the other ones. So when you're standing on the street, it almost sounds like the buildings are talking to each other. It's really fascinating. I went down on the street, recorded that. I didn't really manage to capture the talking aspect of the sound, but I still think it sounded really good and very captivating. So this sound got to lay the whole foundation for the album. This sound is present in almost all tracks, but it's most audible on the one called Skimran. I think this album is the most coherent and probably the best work I've done so far. I really wanted every track to have its own feeling and energy and not to have like two tracks sounding the same. So I deleted quite a few ones during the process, and I also merged 2 or 3 tracks into one, which turned out really good and ended up with 12 tracks. I also paid a lot of attention to the order of the tracks to give the album a certain flow that I really like. And it's intentionally divided into 3 parts with 3 techno tracks and then 1 ambient track. That makes like 1 island. And these 3 islands are separate but still connected to each other, and that gives the whole album a very nice flow, I think. And I especially like the transition between the track Cirklar and Svärmande, which makes the whole album kind of just disappear into the horizon, like it was never there. I think all tracks work very well by themselves, but I think it's worth listening to the whole thing from start to finish in one go and just let yourself disappear into the sounds. Usually I start by jamming with my machines very freely, no intention of going in a certain direction or so. And sometimes it goes really fast and sometimes it takes a few hours to find something interesting. But when I do, I'm just ready to press record. I can record up to 6 channels at the same time, and sometimes I do that. But I really like the concept of recording every part separate. For example, a bass line. I let it roll and while I'm recording, I'm tweaking the sound until I feel I've discovered everything that's in that sound, or when I lose my flow. Then I move on to the next thing, which can be, for example, the hi-hat. And then I let that sit in the background, jamming with it a bit, changing up the pattern until I have something I really like, and I move on to the next one, and so on. This goes on until I lose feeling for the track. This way you end up with all recordings being different lengths. And some would think that would be a problem, but for me that really opens up a door to creativity, because when I sit down after the session and try to piece together a track, usually the track writes itself. The arrangements get very interesting, and of course I need to tweak some parts, but that's just very minor. And everything has this really nice live feel to it. And I think this is a big part of my sound and why my tracks are structured in the way they are. So, 3 machines that help shape the sound of the album. And first off, it's of course the OP1. I don't really understand it. I don't think anybody really does. It's like the Octatrack. It's like this mythical thing. It turns itself off, but still I think it's worth it. Every time I use it, I end up with something very interesting and not something that I could even think of beforehand. It's not like your usual synth where you have an idea and you go and explore that. No, you just kind of visit the OP1's world and see where it takes you. Next up is the Avalon bassline. And it's a 303 clone, but with a twist. What's special with the Avalon is that you can open up the VCA separately from the rest of the sequence, which means that you can program full 16 steps or whatever with just slides, and then you open up the VCA, and in that way you end up with a very drony kind of hypnotic sound, which I really love, and it's a big part of my sound. You can hear it in the last album, you can hear it here, especially on the track called Skimra, but it's present in many tracks on the album. And the third one is, of course, the Eventide H3000. It's an old effects box. It's very digital, but it sounds so good. It's responsible for all the big spaces on the album, and all the flangers, and probably something more. And it has this very digital quality to it, but the top end just makes every sound and every track shine. It's just great. I really hope you will enjoy this album just as much as I did working on it. INSIKT is available everywhere, so go stream it or download it at your favorite place. Tusen tack. Vi ses.